you a student, mentor, or parent that loves robotics? Then you're in the right place. Up-to-date info on all things robotics. This is the RoboZone Podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. The RoboZone Podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of the RoboZone Podcast. This episode is for Tuesday, June 13th. In this episode, we talked to Bernie Solo, who is a marketing and branding expert, and he has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this subject. It was a great interview, so let's get to that interview and enjoy the episode. Hi, this is Pete Ekman for the RoboZone Podcast. With me tonight, I have Bernie Solo. Bernie has, I did some investigation, or how you did checking up on you after I got your name and number from John Wolford out of 1506 Metal Muscle. And you own a place called Solo Studio Works, correct?
Yes, I do.
So tell us, Bernie, what is Solo Studio Works?
What is Solo Studio Works? Oh my gosh, you start with the hardest question.
I like to do that. That way it gets it out
so
of the way.
There's my first big I started the company in 1993 and started out as a design company to do designing furniture pieces, lamps specifically, and 3D sculptural type artwork on the side from my normal job, which my normal job was commercial photography, specifically automotive. I took that, I was working for another company at the time, and then a few years later, I decided to go independent and then resurrected basically Solo Studio Works into an automotive imaging company. 4 or 5 years later, so maybe in the late 90s, I moved it into doing automotive imagery, which included automotive photography. Well, I should say it's commercial product imaging work. And that's why I was saying it's hard to describe it, because a lot of people they see it every day, but they don't really know what it is, and they don't realize that they're seeing it, which is a lot of times why advertising sneaks up on us.
That means you're doing your job really well, right?
Yes, I am. So, and doing automotive advertising is like nothing else in the world, because it's the most expensive product that people buy. And I'm not counting real estate. I mean, real estate's real estate. But as far as a product goes, that a family purchases a product, a car is the biggest thing. And the unique part of that and doing the advertising work for it is that there's a new model every year. The next year's model is going to come out. We know it's going to happen. So it was a great industry to get into, because
sounds like job security. A lot of job security there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It was really good. So I've been doing that since then, and it turned into, I can get very long-winded. So my background's in illustration. I actually have my a bachelor's of fine art degree in commercial art, and it was an illustration with a minor in photography. So I did commercial illustration that was photographic. So taking the illustration portion in what year? I'm losing track of my time, but it must have been about 15 years ago that I was dabbling in CAD, 3D modeling, and the automotive companies were always putting together what they would call a buck or bucks, which were pre-production cars, automobiles that were hand-built for pre-season photography work, and that got to be expensive. There was time crunches involved with all of that, and they started to realize that they had these vehicles, they existed in CAD, but they didn't exist in real life to be photographed. I was on the cutting edge, the beginning, whatever you want to call it, of taking some of those CAD models and doing photorealistic renderings of them. So they were, by definition, they were illustrations, but they looked like photographs. So, and I had always housed myself, my business, I would house myself within the large automotive photography studios. I had it's kind of like a little bit of a nomad. I had my own setup. I had my own office equipment, all my own computers and scanners and all of that stuff. And I worked within automotive photography studios. That's another thing that, again, if people were in general to just think about it, they would realize how often they see photographs of cars. It's car advertising is everywhere, and it's I was going to say big industry. I don't know. It was big to me anyway. That there were people that it's kind of a seasonal thing, but they would just photograph cars. And the facilities were set up for it. The photographers were set up for it. They specialized in photography of automobiles. So I was already doing photography on my own, but not automotive photography. I was doing the post-imaging work on the photographs, which, because the cars were not in production, they were not perfect cars. They were hand-built, and there was a lot of flaws in them. And so it would be like, photo retouching, beauty photography, photo retouching. So they wanted to do something with the CAD model. So I started rendering the CAD models out, and then they weren't perfect either, because the renderings they took forever, and they were not very good because the CAD was very hard to deal with. And so because I was a professional automotive retoucher, I could do renderings that weren't very nice looking, and I could then retouch them into looking like automotive commercial photography. So I used my illustration skills and my photography skills, and also being around car photographers all the time. I knew what car photography was supposed to look like. And a photograph of a car for advertising is not like going out in the driveway and taking a picture of your car. They've got a supplemental lighting in them. They've got extra reflections. They've got everything to make them look beautiful. And so I was able to do that. And so that was my business for quite a while. And like all businesses, there was only a couple of places in the world that did it, at least in the United States. We were, what did I say, 15? Yeah, about 15 years ago, I had started another company with a partner, and we were one of 7 vendors globally that did digital imaging work for Chrysler Corporation. And of course, if you think back in the history of the automotive companies, we never thought the big 3, could go bankrupt, but it was kind of that was sort of like the end of that business. It was the end of that business for a lot of people too.
That was a really rough time in our history.
Right, people, and luckily, I actually did a lot of work for Ford, and Ford was the one of the big 3 that didn't go bankrupt, and so we all know the history of what happened with all that stuff. And so I still continue to do work with Ford now, but again, like most things, the market gets flooded. We're looking at, you can pick anything like 3D printing. When it first came out, there was only a few companies and a few people that were doing 3D printing, and now a lot of households and schools, classrooms, got 3D printers.
It's funny you bring that up, Bernie, because I got a new one yesterday. It's called a CR10. It's made by Creality, and it's an extra large kind of 3D printer, and I've been printing nonstop since I got the thing.
I just heard some good stuff about that. There was just a review on it today. I was gonna read that. I have 2 MakerBots. I have my first MakerBot's a Thing-O-Matic. It's one of the kits, the wooden kits from 2010.
Yeah, I've seen that one before.
My son and I built it, and the thing is rickety. It squeaks and it keeps falling apart and stuff, but it prints beautiful. And I have a newer MakerBot from a few years ago that I use more when I really got to get parts made. It's got a bigger build plate and stuff like that. But there's a lot of that out there now. So anyway, my example of that is that the businesses kind of got flooded, and running into there's a lot of kids, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the high school, with the robotics. Well, I not only mentor robotics, but I also am a committee member in Boy Scouts. So I serve as a adult leader in Boy Scouts, and I also volunteer at the school, things like that. So I'm around the high school kids quite a bit, and just where I was going with this was I kind of do you know what mind mapping is?
I actually do. I am an IT consultant, so okay. I do mind mapping practices all the time.
My wife says that's how I hold a conversation. So if you can follow that, because it's all connected, right? So
it is. It's one big giant spider web, and it really helps. I was teaching veterans on Friday. We have Impact Day for my company. So we were doing interview skills and that type of thing, because when you come from the military into the civilian world, it's night and day. So I was trying to teach them how to use terms and body language that is of a non-threatening nature, because, if we're in the military, and I was in the military, you kind of really rigid, and that doesn't work in the private sector.
Well, so what I was going to say about the students is that I hear a lot of them talking about going to college and all this stuff, and even looking for jobs, or the people that I would interview in latter years, because our company it wasn't real big. We had nine people altogether before the bankruptcy, Chrysler. Hearing some of the young people come out, and their resume was a list of the software that they knew, and it wasn't a list of skills. It was a list of, I can use this application. I understand this application. I'm on the new version of, that's the same sort of thing with, like, when I started doing digital retouching automotive, that was actually the year I started was 1990. And that's the year that Photoshop was invented. I didn't work in Photoshop. I worked on a mainframe computer doing photo retouching. And we had one computer, and there were 3 guys that worked 3 8-hour shifts around the clock. As far as photography, having photography skills and illustration skills and things like that, and then to get in there and say, okay, this is a tool that I'm going to use, and then to hear the market getting flooded with, oh, yeah, I know Photoshop. Okay.
No, it's not that easy. I do interviews all the time. I want to start, I said, well, what's your favorite font, or what's your favorite way to edit out someone having red eye or something, and you start throwing challenges at them, and they either know it or they don't. So.
Well, you just mentioned editing too, and I've been learning a bit more. I've always dabbled in video editing and some After Effects and things like that when I needed to for some of the work that we did. We didn't do a whole lot of motion, but it's the same thing like with video editing. It's really, the courses that I've taken recently about video editing is about storytelling and timing and things like that, not how to use the software. I mean, I am learning how to use software, but that's the tool that I need to get the story told.
Right. If you can't tell the story, people aren't going to understand it, and they're going to click off it. So.
Yeah, and the same thing with writing, right? I mean, you write, right? You tell stories.
Yes, sir.
And that's where the talent is, not in the fact that I've got a better pencil.
Bernie, let's talk a little bit about one of the things I wanted to cover in this episode is marketing a new team. I'm starting a new team. I just left the More Martians Than the Martians. I'm moving out to Fowlerville. I don't know if you've ever been to Fowlerville, but I'm starting a team there, and I've already have a name for it. It's called the F.I.R.S.T team, or the Fowlerville Area Scientific Technicians, right? Or F.I.R.S.T. So I wanted to talk about how you would market a new team. Now, you're a mentor on a team, and you handle the social media side and the marketing side, right? So one of the things I started listing a set of steps that a new team would need to do. And the first thing is letting the community know about the new team, right? I mean, you have to advertise. Mm-hmm. Without money, which is social media. So how does your team utilize social media, and is there a certain service such as Twitter you may choose over something like Instagram?
Well, I did personally with my new brand, which is, you said that my corporation is actually Solo Studio Works Incorporated. My new brand is called Works by Solo. So if we use the word brand, you know where that came from, right?
No, you can.
It's a brand.
Can educate me.
Branding your cow or your horse.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so basically the brand, as far as my personal experience and what I know about, I haven't worked at an ad agency. I worked for the ad agency. Ad agencies are my clients. With automotive, I have to be approved by the automotive company as well, but the person I send the bill to is the ad agency. But the brand can come down to the identity, which is another simpler word is logo. With social media, especially, I've got a couple of friends started off having a username for Facebook. They had another username for Instagram, another username for Twitter. And then they said, oh, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. and then I'm going to call the channel another name, So they get going, and they started to be popular, and they ended up with brand management issues because they said, well, wait a minute, who are you where? You're this person, but you're this, but then this is your, and it was this. So now there's two people that I know that are going through this kind of a chaos right now, trying to straighten out their brand. And young people right now, which is kind of what we're talking about with F.I.R.S.T Robotics. Young people right now, when they get on social media, that's what they're actually doing. They're creating a brand for themselves. And that's what we have right now in the day and age that we're living in, is people have personal brands. That's who they are on the internet. Really, I would recommend making sure that brand was solid before you ever went out and even told anybody about it. So that needs to be clear, needs to be have the look and the feel and the sound and everything about it figured out before it gets published. And that means public.
Right, and you can crowdsource a name. So what I did for my team is I didn't even come up with the name. There was a young lady on the Martians, or the More Martians, I'm sorry. Her name is Liz, and she's one of the mentors. And her last name's Nowakowski. And if she's listening, hi, Liz Nowakowski. She actually handed me a piece of paper and said, Pete, I think this might be a good name for you. And she's a prior teacher. And she handed it to me, and it said the FAST team. And it said F.S.T. And I said, that's cool. So all it says was the FAST team. So what I did is I started out by going out and doing a Google search, and I saw if there was a URL available, and the FAST team was available, so I took that. And then I started doing my searches on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat, and registered that same name to all of those 4 social groups, so that I could make sure I had it. No one could take it from me if they heard it or something of that nature, because that's a lot of competition in the business world. You really have to watch your name. You have to be very proactive, correct? From your side, I'm sure you have that experience.
And I got a question for you.
Sure.
Did you get a .com?
I did not. I got a .org, and I did it for a reason. Is because a robotics team is not a company. A robotics team is an organization that falls underneath the school system. It was available for .com. I just did not register it.
You say it was available for .com?
It was available. I just did not register it at that time. For
the $30 a year or whatever it is, if it's still available, I would suggest just owning it.
Yeah, I thought of, but I'm working for free right now because I haven't done any fundraising yet. I'm in the baby stages of I just registered a team. I have meetings with the school system to initiate all that. So I'm starting out small. I just wanted to make sure that I could lock down an environment for the .org, and then what I did is I went out to Google and created a email address called the FAST team at gmail.com. So I already had that brand too. So I had an email address to register the website, to register with all the 4 different social media platforms.
Okay.
So I locked that all down.
Okay. Can I make another suggestion to you?
Sure.
Back to branding again. My email address is bernie@solostudioworks.com. I have a new email address that's bernie@worksbysolo.com. So whenever I give somebody my email address, I'm also branding.
Correct.
I'm not helping Google with their Gmail accounts. I'm helping my own. So if you go ahead and get that .org hosted, I would suggest, because you're in the early stages right now, go in and do that. Get all your emails at the FAST team?
Yep, the FAST team.
The FASTteam.org, right?
Yes, sir.
So you could be Peter@thefastteam.org. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's on my plan to do. I already have that. I just wanted the first way to do it was to get the Gmail address so that I could register all the social media, because then all the social media is tied to that one account.
Yeah, but now that if you go ahead and host it and get your email, you're going to have to go back and change all those.
I actually won't. I actually won't. I'm going to leave it like that in case I ever change the hosting or something with the hosting happens where their services go down. It has happened. I am in the IT, industry, so I have seen that happen. So the reason I did it from a Gmail perspective first was that I've never heard of a Gmail address getting shut down or other than if you break or infringe on a copyright, which I'm not. I already checked on that as well. But I wanted all those just to register, and you're correct. If I wanted to, I can re-register or I can change the email address. I was just in, I need to lock all these down right now because I had the idea going, and I was free-floating before I had the hosting done. Because the hosting takes a little bit more time, so.
Well, website, yes. And I know I'm not an IT expert. I'm into, like you said, the advertising and the branding is why you're talking to me. But I think I've had are you familiar with network solutions?
Yes.
Back in the day when the internet was invented, that was the only place you could register.
I'm not going to say my exact age, but I do remember that.
Okay. So I've been with network solutions as far as my hosting for email for, I don't know, 20, how long's the internet been? 25 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've never had, I mean, not that I know of it. Maybe it was down in the middle of the night sometime when I never needed it. But if you go with a reliable host, the thing is that email, because it's at your domain, and if you own the domain, I'm probably telling you stuff you already know, but if
I don't mind,
you own the
it's
domain.
just reassurance.
you own the domain. If you say I'm with GoDaddy or whoever's your host, and you say, you know what, I don't like you guys anymore, I'm going to pull my domain and I'm going to have it hosted by whoever. You pull your domain and all your email addresses and everything out of there, and you have it hosted with your next whoever your web hosting is on their server. So to me, that's even more secure than having a Gmail account. Maybe I'm looking at it from a different perspective, but it's like that's my brand. And I think, I don't have anything to back this up, but I like the idea that if I were to when I do give my email address to somebody, it's also my brand. And I think that's, well, I give my email address out a lot. So I guess it's probably more often than I give out business cards.
And robotics teams, it's the same way now. I mean, you drive everything to your social media or to the website so that people, we hand out cards or we speak or we have it on our brand, like stickers, vinyl stickers on the back of the car. I mean, it's your identity in robotics. As much as you are associated with the team, there's got to be a way for everyone that's interested in communicating with your team to communicate through a channel. So.
Well, yeah, they're run like a small business. Well, I don't know. My wife and I look at our family like it's a small business, which is nice because we like to be in the black at the end of the year, not the red, like a business. And what's kind of funny about the branding is that my kids have their name at Solo Studio Works. My whole family is at that domain, so that's like. It basically brands, when my kids are sharing their email addresses out, it's branding my company at the same time. So
right.
Besides, I also have control over the hosting. Now they can go out and get Gmail emails any day they wanted to.
Sure, it's really easy. It's free. It's fast, and you're up and running. And that's kind of why I chose it. Not only that, Bernie, but I'm like I said, I'm an IT guy, so. I got a Chromebook. I bought a cheap Chromebook, and I registered it with that Gmail address so that it pulls all the contacts in as well. So it's it's a service as well as an email address is what it is.
It's huge. I actually, truth be said, I have a Gmail email address because Google made me have one. I don't know if I have to have it now. But when I first joined up with Google, with YouTube, they insisted that it be a Gmail, that I have to have a Gmail. I don't know if it's still like that or not, but because they contact me through my other email address. They can't contact me through my Gmail because I don't look at it. So if they want to talk to me, they have to go through my domain address, and they do. So I do have that. In fact, I just looked it up for something else on YouTube. I had to go into something, and it wanted to confirm that I had the Gmail address still. So, yeah, Google's big. There's no doubt about it. So anyway, I was just, like I said, you wanted to talk to me about branding, and I actually see companies. I've had business cards. I still have business cards of people who are at a corporation, and I get their business card and it says so and so at gmail.com.
Yeah, that's a huge. I will jump on your bandwagon in that fashion. If if it's like that, I will be using the email address of the domain hosting that I choose, right? But I just simply used it just to register everything. But you're right. If I look at a business card and if it's a business, a legitimate business, and it says at gmail.com, I will tear that card up. I don't care to.
Well,
I mean, that
yeah.
if it's a business and I'm not saying a robotics team. I'm saying Ben and Jerry's Automotive Service. If at the bottom of it says Ben and Jerry at gmail.com, I don't take it takes the credibility away from them. I think
it does. And the other thing is that because I had I was telling you about my kids. I mean, that was sort of a funny story, but having my company, when we had multiple employees, I would issue those employees their name at the domain. So if we had a new person in, I would give them their email address. If a person left, I would shut off their email address. So with a robotics team, there's turnover. There's turnover every year. So if you wanted a robotics team and everybody at the robotics team to have, Bobby at fastteam.org and Susie at fastteam.org and Jimmy at fastteam.org, everybody could have their email addresses there. And if when they were done with the team, then you delete it.
Yeah.
You shut it off. They don't have that. Versus them getting email if there's something that comes in for the team and it comes to their Gmail address and you're not in control of that, then, and I'm not a control freak. I'm just saying for consistency, if you're looking at consistency and branding and things like that, I guess I'm just seeing that as a consistency and that it can be that important. And when you're at the beginning stages, it's way easier to do it now than it would be to do it later.
Yes, sir. That was my point. Yeah, it's easy to do it now at the beginning, and yeah, we went down the avenue of registering a team. Well, not registering a team. That was a previous episode, but we were talking about branding a team, right? So I told you that I registered all the 4 major social medias with the same name, because you brought up the fact that you want the same name to be consistent, 'cause then you don't have to worry about any branding management, which I don't want to do because we have to build robots. We're so dedicated to doing that. We have to get that done. So the next thing I chose to do is I chose a color scheme. I didn't choose the exact color scheme with the school that I'm aligning myself with, but I chose 2 of their 3 major colors, and then I chose a different color so it shows consistency and a bond with the school, but at the same time my own unique team identity. Do you think that's a good choice?
Yes, I love your thinking on that. Yeah, because you are doing a little bit of that cross identification in there, and it's going to probably even help with some familiarity as far as the colors go. I think that's a good idea.
So the next step I did after that, Bernie, it was I actually went out to this website called Fiverr. It's FIVERR.com. Have you ever been to that website?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Fiverr is a website where independent artists, illustrators, people that do video editing, audio editing, they put their services out there and say for $5 or $10 or $25, usually in $5 increments, I will do this for you. So I had a logo created by purchasing it off a service off that website. It cost me right around $55. I got to do 2 sets of logos. I got to do 5 different revisions of the logos, and then once I settled on 2, because I have 2 sets, he finalized them and provided me with JPEG, AI formats, vectors, everything I need to do anything from T-shirts to vinyl stickers on the car to a wrap on the side of a car if I wanted to. And I got that all done for $55.
That's why I'm changing my business. He's actually that knows Photoshop and Illustrator. That's the kid.
Yeah, it's called the gig economy, and it is for those kids. It's exactly. I mean, you brought up earlier the young lady that was an artist, but yet her parents didn't, are not letting her do that. But if they, and I'm a parent too, if her parents are overbearing, then what she could do is put her service out there on Fiverr, and someone contacts her and says, I need a audio bumper for a website or for a podcast. And then they do that. I mean, so she can have that avenue and additional income if she wants to do that, but it's not her main job day to day. I mean, there are options out there, more so for younger generation than anyone. Yeah. So, I mean, that's how I went about doing it, because I couldn't pay $500 for a logo to get done. Well, I haven't done any fundraising yet, so I'm paying for it out of my pocket.
Yeah, well, it's a whole different thing, and I could go on and on about back in the day, it used to be the designers that I worked at, the art studio I worked at, they wouldn't start a logo project for a company for under $10,000.
Right, and
that was back in the '80s.
Right, but I mean, for $55, I did some searching around, and that was unheard of. And it is an awesome logo. Every kid that has seen it, it's on my social media. I've used that logo.
Okay, I look forward to seeing it.
So I'll link it.
I know it's available. I know that there's some talented people out there doing that stuff. And again, nothing ever stays the same. Everything's always dynamic. And I'm fortunate that I was able to get into graphic arts before Fiverr.
Well, and Fiverr's not the only website that does this. There's a couple other ones, but now that they're called gig sites, like a gig, kind of like a music gig. I DJ on the weekends, so you get paid for a certain amount of work, but it's not my day-to-day job. So you can never have too much money, especially with kids in college. I'm just warning you, because yours aren't there yet.
Yeah, I just part of the mentoring I do is that I try to help students who do want to go into the arts of some sort of to do artwork for a living. Work at helping them find a way that they can do it and make a good living at it.
Right, and I do so. Go ahead.
The places like Fiverr and that, and I know that there's others that that's making it harder. It's making my job tougher.
And I don't mean it to
find that, because I don't know. There was like I said, I came from, when I went to design school, it was that the people I was looking up to in the industry that were out there, the type of job that I wanted. I was meeting people that were making $3,000 to $500,000 a year doing commercial artwork. And now that people are doing logos for $55, it's a completely different world. But it is. But the thing is I'm swinging with it. I've changed my business. I'm doing a new brand. I'm really excited about it. And doing it, there's new ways to make money now. That used to be the old way I made money, and now I'm going to make money in a new way. So it's exciting, right? Who wants to stay doing the same thing all the time anyway? So
I did. That's why I'm a consultant. I don't want to do the same. I go from project to project, and every project's a new thing. So I don't do the same thing.
Well, how would you? And the other thing is I would rather have you go and get a logo from somebody who really loves what they do, and it sounds like you did a real professional job for you, versus you saying, well, I can't afford it, so I'm going to do it on a napkin and then go Xerox it a few times and go get business cards. I've seen people just really butcher stuff because they don't have resources like that. So I think, especially for a team that's like you said, it's a .org, it's a volunteer situation, fundraising and all things like that. That is the perfect way for you to go about, getting that logo. And from what you told me, this young person, saying it's a young person, I'm assuming it is, that
yes, it was
a complete package for you.
Yeah.
Because it also, if you want to look, where can you go? If you actually go to F.I.R.S.T, I know they did it this last year, and they've probably done it years before. If you go to F.I.R.S.T and you go to the game of the season media, it's like a media package or something like that.
Yes, they have a media package out there that has the logos on it.
Yeah, and what you'll find is there's rules. They'll say if you're going to print it in a dark color, it can only be this way. If you're going to print it in reverse, which is white on a color, it needs to be this way. If it's going to be full color, it needs to be this way. And have some rules so that it doesn't get out of hand, especially with volunteers. That can get out of hand really quick. You spend this time thinking about this and have somebody, I'll say professional, make your logo and your brand and everything, and then have somebody get a hold of it and say, oh, I made these t-shirts with the JPEG because I couldn't find the vector file. And next thing you know, you've got this blurry, smudgy looking thing, and they, we lost, I didn't know where the file was. Or
we've all seen it. We've all seen it, Bernie. We've all seen examples of it.
So
and you can only make do with what you have, but.
Right, but you have a whole package now, though. So I'm saying, if you've got that vector art, that vector art is resolution independent. So it can go as big as you want to. You could do a sticker for the side of the trailer, or you could make t-shirts or hats with it. In fact, you can even use vector art to do embroidery.
Right, and I already. It's funny that you bring that up because I have already shipped that file off to an embroiderer to have the embroiderer logo done. So that when I have my meeting going into the school, I already have a shirt that has the logo on it, and it's displayed. So, I'm kind of positioning it to where they can't say no.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Well, like I said,
you're doing a good job.
I had a lot of time. Well, not a lot of time, but I had it was around me when I decided I wanted to start a new team. I'm like, well, this has got to do it. This has to get done. And that's why we're doing these episodes for the RoboZone podcast, is a series of how to start a team. Mm-hmm. You have to do step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on and so forth. But branding and marketing and social media, if you don't have that for your team, no one's going to know who the team is. So
if I could take just a step back.
Sure.
You did some things that, if we're going to give advice to other new team coaches starting teams, you did some things that sounded to me what I would call more intuitive things that you did with the color and the way you probably directed this logo to be designed, that some other coaches or would-be coaches might not, they may have never experienced that before. When I designed my new logo, designing your own logo is kind of a hard thing to do anyway. Most people will tell you, even a professional designer, they go to another designer to have them do their logo because it's hard to do that. But I'm working on a logo for a friend of mine now, and I'm asking questions like using words like how do you want this to look competitive? Do you want this to be, is this a fun organization? Are you guys really tough? Or
right.
Are you is it going to be kind of funny, or is there some sort of, is it humorous? Is it smooth? Is it sharp? And you get all these descriptive words together on a sheet, and when you go down and you look at this thing, like you can even use words like, when I did my logo, I used the word thick and industrial. I wanted it to feel heavy. Okay, so those are the words that I had in mind. So when my logo was developing, I kept looking at these going, okay, it needs to be thicker, and is it heavy enough? Is it bulky? Does it feel like it's it's like is it a full-size heavy-duty pickup truck, or is it looking like a minivan, type of a feel to the logo. And that's the type of communication that a lot of people, I don't think, have ever experienced it. And it's actually a lot of fun to do something like that. In fact, it's more fun to have somebody to be describing that to somebody else, versus us trying to figure it out on our own. But there's I guess it's kind of a language that if you have a really good commercial artist that's experienced in that sort of communication, they actually walk clients through that. They'll talk to them about it feeling like more open, or it's heavy, or it's dark, or light, things like that, and ask them for those types of feel, and be really, really listening to those types of communications and those descriptive words. That's what I do when I have a client that is asking me to do something for them. I have these questions I ask them about that, and then in the end, a team, we're talking about robotics teams here, would have a logo and a brand as it would be, that would have that the feeling of what they wanted it to be, or close. Like when you said you worked with the colors, so you already had that feeling. Now you may have a coach that has no idea what color to do, and then on top of that, they may have a horrible taste in color. So, they're not sure, what they're doing. So I guess maybe that's, something, if I were to tell, if a coach was saying they were looking for a designer to help them with their branding, I would interview those people and find out how good their verbal communication was, as far as getting the feel of that brand and what that's going to mean. And when you said crowdsourcing too, run it by the other mentors of the team, or even the students, and see, what sort of a feeling they want that to do, and just write down a list of those descriptive words, and sort of get that figured out. And then hopefully you'll be working with a designer that would be able to communicate that, and get that down. Because once that brand is there, it's great to have that, and most, you got a, consensus. I was going to say everybody agreed on it. That's never going to happen. But if you have a consensus that that's the brand and that's what that look is going to be, then you've also got people excited about spreading it around too, because they're, they think it's got the right feel to it, and it's what it, it says what it's supposed to.
Right. And I mean, when I did my logo, I had to give them some ideas of what I was going for and some type of, verbiage, so he understood. It wasn't a person-to-person discussion. It was over, an email. And then as he gave me revisions, or he gave me the first set, and I said, I'm going a little bit towards this. So just an idea of what he gave me. He came up with his own little robot, and it's next to the F.I.R.S.T team, and I'll send the link out later so you can understand what it looks like. But then it came back to me. I was like, it's a little too kiddish, like little kiddish. And the logo for the high school, or the mascot for the high school, is a Titan, or it's a gladiator. So I gave him a revision. I said, I want a gladiator helmet on top of the robot's head. And he came back with it. It was perfect. I chose it. Bam, done. So it's this robot, and it's got the gladiator mask on it. It looks like he's from the movie Gladiator. It's that one that I can't remember the guy's name that was in that movie, but it's got the face shield on it, and it looks awesome. And I'm like, it's done. It's done. We're good to go. I love it.
So this is very familiar then to the Martians, isn't it?
Martian, yes. A Martian, a gladiator, and a Titan kind of sometimes get a little mixed up. Yeah. But there's no doubt when you see this face mask that it's a gladiator, or gladiator. See, I almost screwed myself up. So.
Well, there you go. No, but you knew what you were doing. So, I guess just consider that. Mm-hmm. Consider that you know what you're doing. So if you give advice to other, would-be coaches, mentors that are starting a team in branding, let them know that there's some of that stuff in there that they may want to research a little bit of that before they start out there.
Of course they do. It's mandatory. It's mandatory that you guys start doing your research and finding out what your team wants to be. Because the reason I went with the Gladiator helmet on the robot is because I wanted to make sure that everyone, it says the F.I.R.S.T team. That doesn't say robotics anywhere in that title, right? And it's a robotics team. It's a acronym, and underneath it says Fowlerville Area Scientific Technicians. But I wanted to make sure that it had a somewhat of an identity from the school system, as well as if it's a robot sitting there with a Gladiator helmet on it, it kind of serves both purposes, at least in my thinking.
Yeah, and I never didn't think about it till just now, but our team, Metal Muscle, doesn't say robotics either. We say Metal Muscle, and then we say FRC 1506, and the people in the know what FRC means. So, and because we were the home team for Kettering, that's why we adopted the Bulldog, and our Bulldog is different from the Kettering Bulldog.
Yeah, it is. I've seen it.
But it's a bit different. And we went through a little bit of growing pains with some of the vector files that we had, the art files for the logo. There was I don't know if you know much about Adobe Illustrator, but some of those there's like a lot of layers and things in there, and
yes,
there's some things going on in there that were going to be very confusing to a screen printer. And I went through and sorted some of that stuff out to just simplify it. Because there can be, little errors and things when there's lines that are like on top of each other. They take the same spot, basically, that they're not. It's easy to kind of mess it up, I guess.
No, it makes total sense. And for people who don't know anything about embroidery or vinyl cutting, it'll screw up the line.
Yeah, you really want somebody that knows what they're doing to make it what we would call dummy proof. So that when that does go out to the embroidery or the t-shirt place or whatever, and we're always in a hurry because we always need it for next weekend or something, and it comes back with, there's a double line on something, and it's because there's some weird vector, problem in the file.
Bernie, we've had a great discussion today. We talked about marketing, we talked about branding, we talked about robotics, we talked about automotive industry. How can people follow you? Just give us your full name and how we can follow you on social media if they're interested.
Okay, well, you can look me up at Bernie Solo. Hopefully I can be Googled. But on social media, I am known as Works by Solo.
Okay, so Works by Solo. We can do a Google search on that. We'll find you. Again, Bernie, thank you for your time tonight. I greatly appreciate it on a Sunday night. Everyone, anyone who comes on the podcast, I really thank them for Sunday nights. I pick Sunday nights because you don't have graduation parties to go to, and it's kind of, you're getting ready for the work week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank you once again, Bernie, for coming on the podcast, and we'll be looking to follow you on social media. So I hope you have a great night, Bernie.
Thank you. You too, Peter.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world. Thanks for listening to the RoboZone podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. Find us online at RoboZoneTV.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.